The elevator stopped between the 23rd and 24th floors with a violent jolt that threw me against the wall. The lights flickered once, twice, and then settled into a dim emergency glow. Across from me stood the one person I least wanted to be trapped with in the entire building, my work nemesis, Claire Morgan. For 3 years, we had competed for everything: promotions, clients, recognition, even the smallest victories in meetings. I had convinced myself that she hated me. Then, in the darkness, she looked straight into my eyes and quietly said, "I've always wanted to be alone with you." I remember thinking that the elevator must have damaged my hearing. But the expression on her face told me I had heard every word correctly. "Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the possibility that people can be completely different from what they appear to be, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs a little hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel." Sometimes the person we misunderstand the most is the person carrying a pain we never knew existed. My name is Daniel, and until that evening, I had built my entire professional life around staying away from Claire. We worked for the same advertising company, a fast-moving place where everyone seemed to be waiting for someone else to make a mistake. Claire was brilliant, confident, and terrifyingly good at what she did. She could walk into a meeting with 5 minutes of preparation and somehow leave with the client completely convinced that her idea had been theirs all along. I was different. I worked quietly, stayed late, and believed good work should speak for itself. Unfortunately, our styles collided almost immediately. The first time we competed for a major account, Claire's presentation won by a single vote. The second time, mine did. After that, something strange happened. Every time one of us succeeded, the other seemed to be standing nearby. We became office legends, the two people who could turn a simple meeting into a silent battlefield. Co-workers joked about it, but they didn't know how exhausting it was. What they also didn't know was that I secretly respected her. I admired the way she never gave up, even when things went wrong. I just didn't know how to tell whether her confidence was real or a shield. Then came the promotion. Our company was opening a new regional division, and both Claire and I were shortlisted for the director position. It was the biggest opportunity of my career. I had spent months preparing, working weekends and sacrificing evenings with my younger sister, Emma, who had always been the one person reminding me that my life was supposed to contain more than spreadsheets and deadlines. Claire and I were assigned to work together on the final proposal, and I immediately assumed it was a trap. For 2 weeks, we barely spoke except about numbers and deadlines. Then, 3 days before the presentation, I discovered that several pages of my research had disappeared from the shared drive. The missing information made my entire section look incomplete. I was furious. I assumed Claire had removed it to make herself look stronger. I confronted her, and she denied touching anything. We argued in the hallway until our manager stepped between us. The next morning, the missing files suddenly reappeared. I didn't apologize. I should have. Because that evening, Claire sent me a message saying she had discovered the files were deleted by an automated synchronization error. She had stayed late to recover them. She hadn't told anyone because she didn't want credit. She simply said that my work mattered to the presentation, and she wasn't going to let a technical problem destroy it. That was the first crack in the wall between us. But pride is a stubborn thing. The night of the final presentation arrived during a thunderstorm. The building was nearly empty when Claire and I finished reviewing the last slides. We were both exhausted. The promotion decision would be announced the next morning, and neither of us knew who would win. We stepped into the elevator together. Then it stopped. At first, I laughed nervously. Claire pressed the emergency button. Nothing happened. She tried the phone. No signal. The elevator company told us help was on the way, but the storm had caused problems throughout the building, and it could take some time. That was when the silence became uncomfortable. For the first 10 minutes, we stood on opposite sides of the elevator like two strangers waiting for a train. Then Claire sat down against the wall. I noticed her hands trembling. I asked if she was okay. She said she hated elevators. I had never known that. Slowly, the woman I thought was fearless began to disappear. Claire admitted that when she was 8 years old, she had been trapped inside a stalled elevator with her mother for nearly 4 hours. Her mother had been having serious health problems at the time, and Claire remembered spending those hours believing she was going to lose her. I suddenly understood something. Her confidence wasn't proof that she was fearless. It was proof that she had learned how to hide fear. We started talking. Not about work. About life. She told me she had spent years trying to prove herself because her father had always compared her to her older brother. Every achievement felt temporary. Every mistake felt like evidence that she wasn't good enough. She said competition had become easier than vulnerability because if she was competing, she didn't have to admit she was scared of being rejected. Then she looked at me and said the words that had stopped my heart earlier. "I've always wanted to be alone with you." I stared at her, completely confused. She smiled sadly and explained that she hadn't meant it the way I thought. She had always wanted a chance to talk to me without deadlines, coworkers, competition, and pride standing between us. She had noticed things about me that I never imagined anyone noticed. The way I stayed late to help junior employees. The way I always called my sister before leaving work. The way I pretended not to care when someone criticized me. Then she admitted something even more surprising. She had never hated me. She had been intimidated by me. Apparently, she thought I was the person everyone trusted because I never seemed desperate for approval. I laughed when she said that because it was almost painfully ironic. I had spent years thinking she was confident while secretly feeling like I could never measure up to her. For the first time, we saw each other clearly. The elevator became strangely peaceful after that. We talked about our families, our failures, the jobs we had once dreamed about, and the people we had lost along the way. Claire told me about the night her mother passed away. She had been 22, and after the funeral, she decided she would never again allow herself to depend on anyone. I told her about my father leaving when I was 16 and how I had spent most of my adult life believing that needing people was a weakness. Neither of us laughed after that. We simply sat there, two exhausted people who had spent years fighting each other because it was easier than admitting we were both afraid of being hurt. Nearly 2 hours later, the elevator doors finally opened. Emergency workers were waiting outside. The hallway was crowded with security staff, but neither Claire nor I moved immediately. We just looked at each other. Something had changed. The next morning, the promotion announcement was scheduled for 9. At 8:30, Claire walked into my office carrying a folder. She told me the company had offered her the director position. My stomach dropped. Then she placed the folder on my desk and said she had declined it. She had recommended me. I couldn't believe it. She explained that the final proposal had been stronger because we had combined our strengths. She said she didn't want a promotion built on defeating me. She wanted to work somewhere she could build something with people she trusted. Then my manager entered the room. He told us the company had changed the structure of the new division. Instead of choosing one director, they had created 2 leadership positions because the proposal demonstrated that our skills complemented each other. For the first time in 3 years, Claire and I laughed together. But the story didn't end with a promotion. That would have been too easy. 3 months later, Claire's mother's old medical debts resurfaced, leaving her facing a financial crisis she had hidden from everyone at work. She tried to handle it alone, just as she always had. I discovered what was happening when I noticed her working late every night. This time, I didn't compete with her. I helped. Not by giving her money, but by helping her contact a financial counselor, restructure the payments, and find assistance through a company support program. Claire resisted at first. She told me she didn't need saving. I told her I wasn't trying to save her. I was simply refusing to let someone I cared about struggle alone. Those words changed something between us. Months passed. The rivalry disappeared completely. We still argued, but now our arguments were about ideas instead of ego. We challenged each other because we wanted the other person to become better, not because we wanted them to lose. And somewhere between late-night projects, coffee runs, terrible office jokes, and conversations that lasted long after work ended, I realized I had fallen in love with her. I didn't tell her immediately. I was terrified. Then one rainy Friday evening, almost a year after the elevator incident, the power went out in our office building. Everyone rushed toward the stairs. Claire stopped beside me. She smiled and said she suddenly remembered another elevator. I asked if she was afraid. She shook her head. She said that the worst thing about being trapped in that elevator hadn't been the fear. It had been realizing how much time we had wasted pretending we didn't care about each other. Then she reached for my hand. I held it. And for the first time, neither of us needed to win. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who believes people deserve second chances, and subscribe for more stories about kindness, healing, and unexpected connections. Your support helps these stories reach someone who may need their message today. And before the story ends, I want to ask you something special. Comment second chances if you believe that sometimes the person we misunderstand can become the person who understands us best. A year later, Claire and I returned to that same building for an important client meeting. We stood in front of the elevator, and she looked at me with that familiar smile. The doors opened. We stepped inside together. This time, the elevator moved smoothly. No fear. No silence. No competition. Just two people who had once believed they were enemies, discovering that beneath all the arguments, misunderstandings, and pride, they had been searching for the same thing all along. Someone who would stay. And sometimes, life doesn't introduce that person with flowers or perfect timing. Sometimes, it traps you in the dark with them until you finally stop pretending. Because the greatest second chances aren't always about getting another opportunity. Sometimes, they're about finally seeing someone for who they really are. And sometimes, the person standing across from you isn't your greatest rival. They are simply the person waiting for you to lower your walls.